This is the City of Waupaca, first Tuesday of the month, City Council meeting.
Welcome, everybody, to our regular scheduled City Council meeting. Today is February 7th, 2023, and it is 6:02 p.m. I'll call this meeting to order by beginning with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, Barb, would you please read the clerk's open meeting statement for us?
This meeting and all meetings of the Common Council are open to the public. Proper notice has been posted and given to the media in accordance with Wisconsin state statutes, so the citizens may be aware of the time, place, and agenda of this meeting.
And also take roll for us.
All right. Mayor Smith,
Here.
Colin Dykstra,
Here.
Lori Chestnut,
Here.
Paul Hagan,
Here.
Henry Veliker,
Here.
Scott Perchatsky, Dave Peterson,
Here.
Paul Mayo,
Here.
Dimitri Martin,
Here.
Eric Olson.
Here.
8 ayes, we have a quorum.
All right, and Barb, you want to just start by introducing yourself for the staff?
Barb Nowak, interim city clerk.
Aaron Jensen, City Administrator.
Eric Bailey, Library Director.
Jared Raku, Community and Economic Development.
Stephanie Wright, Finance Director.
Justin Behrens, Director of Public Works.
Laura Colbert, Parks and Rec Director.
Sergeant Dan Wazard, Waupaca Police Department.
Huge upswing by having you here tonight, Sergeant. Thank you. All right, let's go to the consent agenda. These are some items that we need to take one motion and vote on those unless you see something on here that you would like to be moved to the regular agenda where we would vote on those individually. Not a lot on the consent agenda tonight, but we would need a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Martin, second by Chestnut, that we approve the consent agenda as printed. Discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against, say no. Motion carried. Regular agenda, again, what you have is what you see on your agenda that was sent to you. We would need a motion to approve that also.
So move.
Motion by Chestnut, second by Olson, that we approve the irregular agenda as printed. Discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against, say no. Motion carried. Under announcements and correspondence, we have a thank you from East Central Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission. That's on page 36 of your packet. If you choose to read that, it's just informational. Which brings us to public input. This is for the public to come in front of council and talk to us on something that's not on our agenda tonight. And if they would like to, they need to step up to the podium, give their name and address for the record, and limit their time to 3 minutes or less. Anybody that has public input tonight? All right, let's move on to new business. We have an appointment, a new appointment to the City Planning Commission, so I will turn that over to Council President Paul Mayo.
Thank you, Mayor. The mayor appoints Dana Gutsky to the City Planning Commission. At this time, I need a motion and a second to approve this appointment.
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Olson, second by Chestnut to approve the mayor's appointment and Dana Gutsky to the City Plan Commission. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Back to you, Mayor.
Thanks, Paul. Appreciate it. All right, let's get into the meat of the meeting tonight. First thing we have is we have a request for approval to locate a rotary clock on the City Hall front lawn. And Aaron, you're representing the Rotary and the city on this one, so.
Thank you, Mayor Smith. Council members, good evening. On page 37 of your packet, you'll see a memo that speaks to this requested action. This is really a donation from the Rotary Club to place a decorative piece and a clock, as you'll see in one of the attachments. We've talked about this in previous meetings. You've seen it in a couple reports and newsletters likely. And this is over a $33,000 item that would be completely fundraised for outside of city dollars. And it would, you can see, I think I have a site plan attached here where exactly it would be located. And when I say exactly, I mean approximately. We will have to work with Justin and his crews around potential irrigation that we know is in that area and make sure that nothing's negatively impacted that way. This was one of two locations that we talked about with Rotary. The other one was potentially as a part of the Danes Hall project in that plaza that we expect to happen this year, 2023. Ultimately, this was deemed as the preferred spot location. And Henry, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I understand, really this is meant to be a promotional piece for Rotary, something that can kind of promote the club in a spot with high visibility and a place where people gather. And obviously Rotary does a ton of great work in the community. And little fun fact, I think we have the biggest club in the state for sure, and maybe even more than that. So I think they hope to continue that momentum. We did check from a maintenance standpoint. This is not a heavily maintained item. Once a year, you take the face off, you gotta oil a couple things, and that's about it. It sounds like a 5 to 10 minute job. Talked with Jake Waller, our new facility superintendent, about that. He was good. And then the only thing that we have agreed to assist with is the installation and the cost for concrete. So with that, we would be looking for a potential approval from City Council to install the rotary clock in the proposed location in City Hall front lawn as shown in the site map.
As a Rotarian, I am proud to move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Hagan, second by Veliker, that we approve of the Rotary's donation of a rotary clock and also approve of the location of that clock on City Square. Any discussion?
I have a question, please.
Go ahead.
Is there going to be any interference with snow removal for where this location is?
I don't believe so. It should be in the grassy lawn area, so it's behind the sidewalk.
Okay, I was just wondering, I mean, if the sidewalks obviously have to be cleared also, so I was just wondering if.
Right.
Okay.
Right, I think we're okay.
Colin, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to inquire if it was a battery-operated clock or if it had needed to have power run to it,
Has power to it,
and that's fine in this location.
correct.
I completely support it. I think it's a great idea. I want to make sure that you guys have thought about that before you, you know, if it has to go somewhere else. But anyway, thanks.
Okay. Any other comments?
I've got a question.
Yeah,
Do
Eric,
the
go ahead.
faces light up?
I don't know the answer to that, actually. Not that I'm aware of.
I'm not
I don't
entirely
believe.
sure.
I know the one in Scottsdale doesn't.
Have you seen it in
Yes,
person?
I have.
Oh, cool. I'm gonna guess no. Then.
Or at least it didn't when I went by.
Anything else? All right, Barb will call the roll.
Colin Dykstra,
Aye.
Lori Chestnut,
Aye.
Paul Hagan,
Aye.
Henry Veliker,
Aye.
Dave Peterson,
Aye.
Paul Mayo,
Aye.
Dimitri Martin,
Aye.
Eric Olson,
Aye.
8 ayes, 1 absent, motion carried.
All right.
Thank you, Council.
Yeah, thanks, Aaron. You're still up here. We have to talk about the holiday schedule for this year.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Smith. Council members, on page 40 of your packet, there's a memo that explains this topic. In reviewing the 2023 holiday schedule, we realized we ran into a scenario that's not exactly outlined in our handbook. So it does say when a holiday falls on a Saturday, the preceding Friday will be observed as a holiday. And when a holiday falls on a Sunday, the following Monday will be observed as a holiday. This year it does fall on a Sunday. I'm talking about Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve, but then Monday, in which that would typically be observed, we have Christmas and New Year's, which are also observed holidays. So then we'd have to push one of them to Tuesday, which could be done, I'm sure has been done in the past, or potentially it could be a Friday, as in the past. In having some conversations with the mayor, felt like this is a good opportunity to utilize floating holidays. We have run into a couple scenarios in which maybe the city is not open or not running, and most other businesses or a majority of other businesses are, just because of how holiday schedules fall. And in this scenario, we feel like that would be the case in about a year from now. And we want to be open and operational on times that people expect us to be. We also want to make sure that all of our employees still get their 9.5 paid holidays as outlined in their benefit. So we would just move those to 2 floating holidays. And then they could use that at any time in the 2023 calendar year. However, if they did resign or they were no longer employed with the city sometime before those 2 holidays, they would have to pay those back. So it's a proposal to approve the holiday schedule as is and as normal, with the exception of Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve would be floating holidays to be used at any time throughout the 2023 calendar year. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I have a couple questions.
Yeah,
Okay?
go ahead, Lori.
Okay, so first of all, on our calendars, that date is already printed to everybody who gets a water bill and everything, so it is on our calendar. And I thought about that. And then I wondered if the employees had been did you talk to the employees about how this would work for them?
No, this is the first time. First time we brought it forward was in a department head meeting this morning.
Okay. Then the other thing is I checked with the county, because I remember what they did after, what they're doing is they're doing exactly as we're doing, except for the floating holiday. They have given every employee July. It would be July 3rd.
Yeah, I saw that after our meeting. That came up in our meeting this morning, too.
Did it? Okay, so yeah.
Barb actually checked on it.
Yeah.
Saw that they give that July 3rd holiday off.
And they had done that before, and as I recall, everybody was really kind of happy with that because it extended that holiday in the summer.
Mm-hmm.
I just wondered if that would be an option or not for the employees.
Yeah. Would it be an option? But potentially.
Or would you think of that and then be on the same schedule as the county, because they work with similar hours that we do of open and close?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the recommendation tonight is to use it as 2 floating holidays. So you would have to adjust your motion if you would like to. We don't have a motion on the floor.
No, we
yet,
don't have a
but you
motion
could-
on.
but
I can adjust it.
You could change that motion if you would like to see that being handled differently. Henry? You had-
Well, the expectation, I think, basically, we're gonna have 2 additional operating days, which is good for the public. And then I think for employees that might not be married or have children, hopefully the departments work together and, it gives some flexibility to the whole range of employees versus, I know Christmas is a family holiday, but, it means more when you have smaller kids and that kind of thing. So I think it's a pretty neat idea, and it's just a one-off, right? We wouldn't be back here talking about it or the next council for another
7 years or
6-7 years, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I think your idea is pretty cool too.
It was well appreciated. So,
Laura, hold on a second here. Let
Okay.
other people talk.
okay,
Paul, go ahead.
I just,
Paul, right here.
Oh, Paul, I'm sorry.
Okay, it's all
I'm
right,
looking for
Lori.
it.
No worries. I think that the 2 floating holidays gives more options for employees if they wanted to use it over the July 4th weekend. They could do that, or they could use it when it's more opportune for them. So I would think it would be better just to have 2 floating holidays, and they'd have the option to use it whenever they want.
I still have one more. So is there a budget change with the part-time? Because the part-time would get it now with the differently?
There would be a likely a minor, pretty minor budget impact from part-time staff who might come in and operate the rec center and things like that those days. Minimal, very minimal. I don't have an exact number. I will say that we did get feedback today, this morning, from a department head, and there are probably a number of people in this position, or a few people, especially our higher level supervisors, that they do appreciate that time off over the holidays, because it's one of the few times that we're a little slower because everyone is spending times with the holidays. So as department heads in salaried positions, even when you're off, you're not off, and you're getting bothered, and
Right.
that can happen. And it's a time where they feel like that doesn't happen. And then on the other side of things, I'm sure there would be a lot of our employees that would appreciate the flexibility of the 2 floating holidays. I think hopefully the people that do really appreciate that time when it's slower and they feel like they can be completely away from work, that hopefully they're still able to take that time. It's not like they couldn't take it that day. So just a comment of what I heard this morning.
Okay, so thank you.
Anybody else? Again, the concept is that we felt like having Friday, Monday off 2 weeks in a row was too much for City Hall to be closed, and just doing our own little brainstorming, we felt the 2 floating days would be the most popular of those things, although we didn't think about July 3rd, but then that would mean that would be one less working day too. With floating holidays, there will not be one less working day. It's actually 2 additional working days this year. So, all right, any other comments? Anybody want to make a motion?
I move. Oh, go ahead.
Move to approve.
I'll second.
Motion by Dimitri, second by Henry, that we approve the 2023 holiday schedule as outlined in the City of Waupaca Employee Handbook, with the exception of replacing Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve with floating holidays, which can be used by staff anytime before January 1st of 2024. Any further discussion? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, they have to be used. You don't roll floating holidays, right? Yep.
That is correct.
Okay,
I agree.
thank you.
All right, Barbara, call the roll.
Eric Olson,
Aye.
Dimitri Martin,
Aye.
Paul Mayo,
Aye.
Dave Peterson,
Aye.
Henry Veliker,
Aye.
Paul Hagan,
Aye.
Lori Chestnut,
Aye.
Colin Dykstra.
Aye.
8 ayes, 1 absent, motion carried.
All right, thanks, Aaron. Next up, Josh Warner, Waupaca Online to apply for State of Wisconsin Public Service Commission Broadband Grant. Here's Josh.
So I'm looking for permission to apply for another State of Wisconsin Public Service Commission broadband expansion grant. This is a project we submitted a year ago that council approved us to apply for. The project was recommended for funding, but then didn't make the final cut. And talking with Greg Groman, he thought since it did that well, let's give it another go because there's still a need for it. And what this project is to replace the 50-foot tower you see out back with a 100-foot tower to support Waupaca Online. And a couple, just quick recap, summary of that project, again, since it's been a year since we've talked about it, is to help us with the tree growth that's happened between City Hall and the Shambo Water Tower. There's a couple pictures in your packet showing that, pages 43, 44, I believe. we've lost line of sight from the existing tower. Right now, we've got a very specific spot on the roof that allows us to make that connection, and eventually that's going to become tree covered as well sometime in the next handful of years. And then the equipment we're using for these high-capacity links, you can see that example on page 45 is rather sizable, and the tower out back wouldn't be able to support something like that at the height we need it if we could utilize that spot. So between that and then the eventual reshingling of the roof and the solar going up there, moving through with this project would help us with that link and future upgrades, future bandwidth needs of customers. It would allow us to get everything that's on the roof off the roof as well. And as we look forward for our continued growth, we're going to need a second link going to the Shamble Water Tower at some point. So it helps out with all this stuff that's for the future. It's about a $74,500 project. The Public Service Commission and then Waupaca Online would cover about $35,000 of that, and then the city would cover about $5,500, which would both be a mix of monetary and then some in-kind labor. So that's the kind of the summary of the project, and if there's any questions, and maybe better luck this year.
Do we have any questions? I'm sorry, go ahead, Henry.
It seems like a pretty critical project, so if we're not fortunate to get this grant, I guess you guys have talked about it maybe being a capital project next year or something.
Well, the other key that this drives into is we still have to connect the new Public Works building to City Hall. And Justin and I've had some calls with WPS and a fiber consultant, and I talked to a tower company, and we're just information gathering right now, looking at the different options. So if this happens, that would help offset some costs. If this grant doesn't happen, there might be some other options to get this to all work. And we're learning a lot of stuff and timelines, so a lot of moving parts all together on some of these different needs.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Paul.
If any of these trees are on city property, can these trees be cut back?
I don't think, I think they're all in private yards.
All right, just thought I'd ask.
There were a couple that we kind of, after we got a drone, kind of looked into, and they're, a lot of the private properties out on other side of the river.
Right.
Yeah, the ones on city properties aren't the ones impeding.
We're going to talk about that tonight anyways, aren't we, Justin? Maybe we can help with Waupaca Online. Anybody else? All right, we're still looking for,
I'll move to approve the application of the broadband expansion grant for fiscal year 2023.
I'll second.
motion by Colin, second by Laurie, that we approve the Waupaca Online request to apply for a fiscal year 2023 State of Wisconsin PSC broadband expansion grant for the projects that he described. Any discussion? Barb will call the roll.
Dave Peterson,
Aye.
Henry Veliker,
Aye.
Eric Olson,
Aye.
Colin Dykstra,
Aye.
Paul Mayo,
Aye.
Paul Hagan,
Aye.
Dimitri Martin,
Aye.
Lori Chestnut,
Aye.
8 ayes, 1 absent, motion carried.
Thanks.
Thank you, Josh. Good luck. All right, next up, we have, out at the airport, we have a sale of a building and a lot lease to the EAA Chapter 444. And we have Matt Klatt, our airport manager, is here, along with a couple of representatives from 444. Matt, I would ask that you just give us a little history on this hangar too, as before you get into it.
For the building that they're looking
Yeah.
to purchase. So
Yeah.
this building used to be part of the former greenhouse. That property was procured by the city. It was used to store our runway treatments, both the NAC and our de-icing fluid. And so when I took over, I moved that stuff back up to the Bruner hangar so it could be closer to our equipment, and that left the building pretty much unoccupied. And the EA chapter's been 2017. They've been at the airport since 2017, and they didn't really have a permanent place. They're holding their meetings in our terminal. They're holding their projects at members' garages and things like that. So they had, for a brief time, occupied one of the T hangars before it was found that that was both against the EA's rules, FAA's rules, and the city's rules. So we came up with a plan to allow them to use that building. And I'd like to introduce Mike, the chapter president, and he could go over some of the things that they've done to that building to improve it so far and what the plans are moving forward. So, Mike?
Hi, everyone. My name is Mike Briskewitz. I am the chapter president of EAA 444 here in Waupaca. Like Matt was saying, we've been here since approximately 2017. We do lots of things and activities with the community. We do everything from Young Eagles rides that you'll see during the summertime to some RC builds. We also do hamburger fly-ins, usually at the beginning and the end of the year. And also we're really there as like a social gathering center. Everybody that is in aviation knows what the EAA is. So currently, our group is working with Waupaca's Parks and Rec Department, the library, and Waukesha School District to also have some offerings for the city of Waupaca. So we plan to put on a couple RC programs this summer and do a couple other events that'll be really good for the airport. Over the past summer, we had one Young Eagles Flight Day where we flew 54 kids, 48 of those kids being their first time in an airplane, which was really, really great for our organization. It's one of the things that we like to do first and foremost is give back to the community. With this building, we'd like to use this building for not only our storage, but also as some workshop opportunities. So we do have an aircraft that is not an aircraft, but parts of an aircraft that has been partially assembled over the years that we would also like to continue putting together. We work with young adults and kids to work on the airplane and also do a couple other projects within that. So with this workshop, it would kind of help us accomplish those goals. Right now, it's a little bit difficult to wheel an airplane into the FBO. The door kind of restricts that for us. So I would like to say thank you to Matt and to Aaron for kind of jump-starting this process for us. They've been really integral in helping us work out the details in some of these things. Our group has already started a little bit of work on the area. So if you've driven down Highway 10, if you've gone past the building in question, we've put some new paint on it. We've got some of the shrubbery cleaned up. Also, we've had electric and gas installed into the building so that we can start to utilize it. So,
All right.
Thanks.
Matt, you have anything else that you'd like to add?
Just that, EAA is headquartered right down in Oshkosh, and having a chapter at our airport really is makes a big difference, not just during the week of AirVenture, but just as part of the flying community as a whole. It's one of the most direct ways that the layperson can get involved with aviation. And with 444 having a permanent home at Waupaca, I think it's going to really breed a lot of activity and open some opportunities for some of the young adults in the community.
All right. So we have the purchase of that building, and then we also have lot lease. And the way it's set up in here, I hope this is okay that we do both at the same time. Aaron, are we all
Yep.
right with that?
Yes, that's fine.
All right. Anything you want to add, Aaron?
It's probably something you've already heard, but Chapter 444 big picture wise and what Matt and Brittany are trying to accomplish out there, is just bringing vibrancy and traffic to the airport and continuing to build more trips, more planes, more people. Chapter 444 only helps that, while also bringing together some of these educational and community type of components. So I think it's great that they want to be here, and I think this is a good option to keep them here.
Great. Anybody want to make a motion?
So move.
Second?
Yeah, we have a motion by Chestnut, second by Martin, that we approve of the sale of the building and a lot lease to EAA Chapter 444 at the airport. Any further discussion? Barbara, call the roll.
Paul Hagan,
Aye.
Paul Mayo,
Aye.
Eric Olson,
Aye.
Colin Dykstra,
Aye.
Lori Chestnut,
Aye.
Dave Peterson,
Aye.
Henry Veliker,
Aye.
Dimitri Martin.
Aye.
8 ayes, 1 absent, motion carried.
All right, thanks, Matt. Next up, we have lead service line replacement. Justin.
Thank you, Mayor. Excuse me. I have a cover memo on page 79, followed by the actual resolution on page 8 of the packet. So, early 2022, there was a resolution where the city was authorized $280,000 for lead service line replacement, a bulk of which went to the High and Harrison project. We replaced several others. That program, that funding cycle is coming to an end, and with that, the DNR from other programs and other municipalities not utilizing 100% of their funds said there's more money available. We just have to go through the proper channels. I made the request. I have a resolution here with the amount that I requested, which was $64,640. We have identified 5 more water laterals that we'd like to get replaced, and upon approval tonight, we have until April 30th to get this done. So this is a very short window, but we could not, or I felt we could not pass up the opportunity for the additional funding and try and get a few more laterals replaced. So, in short, the resolution is shown, 1533. It's an agreement, it's an agreement with the Wisconsin DNR for this principal forgiveness, and where the $64,640 is authorized to the city. We don't get any of the amount of money. It goes to pay for the private side replacements. So the water utility, pays for the public side, which is from the main to the shutoff, the private side, which is from the shutoff into the homes, which is typically covered by the homeowners. That's where this money would cover. So we work with the contractors and the homeowners and then get the reimbursement from the DNR back to the homeowners. So looking for support on additional lead service line funding.
All right, you heard Justin's recommendation that we approve this resolution.
Move to approve resolution.
Second.
Okay. Motion by Colin, second by Dave, that we approve the resolution number 1533, a resolution authorizing execution of the Department of Natural Resource Principal Forgiven Financial Assistance Agreement. Any discussion? Paul, go ahead.
How does an average person know if they have a lead line to their house? Any way of telling?
There's a couple ways. You can call the water utility and we can look through our records. You can talk to like a plumber, have them inspect the pipes on the inside of your home, and sometimes that can help determine it. But the best way is just calling the utility. Our records, while we try to keep them as best we can, there's some areas where it's like we know, and there's some areas where we think. So a lot of the times it's found after a leak. We dig down, it's like, okay, we thought it was here it is.
Henry, go ahead.
Yeah, do you have a idea, Justin, of how many more laterals might be out there that you know and think?
Yes. So after this year, we have roughly 450 more
Wow.
residential service lines, yes.
That you know have lead.
We either know or assume.
Wow.
Anybody else? All right, Barbara, call the roll.
Lori Chestnut,
Aye.
Paul Hagan,
Aye.
Henry Veliker,
Aye.
Dave Peterson,
Aye.
Paul Mayo,
Aye.
Dimitri Martin,
Aye.
Eric Olson,
Aye.
Colin Dykstra.
Aye.
8 ayes, 1 absent. Motion carried.
All right, Justin, looks like you're still up, talking about the mechanic position change.
Yes, sir. So this one starts on page 180, or excuse me, 81 of the packet. It goes to 89, and yes, this is a structure change we'd like to make within the street department. So currently, before I get started, so I'll be talking about current, so I'll say either current or past mechanic, and then future is upon approval and support tonight. So our current structure, we have 1 mechanic. What this is looking to do is to change our structure and have 2 mechanics without adding a new or additional position on the structure of street department. So this started whenever we have turnover on a vacancy, we look at our job descriptions, review, well, is there a change needed? Is the position even needed? We did that first with the facility superintendent vacancy when Russ retired. We made a few minor tweaks with that position to try and make it a little bit more efficient, better for the city. So when that position was open, we did the internal advertisement, and then of course we did internal interviews. We extended the position or offered it to Jake Waller, who is the current mechanic. And so right now Jake is working as an interim capacity for kind of both positions, as the facility superintendent and then also as the mechanic. So in order to get him transitioned over to the facility superintendent, we need to find a new mechanic. And once again, we did the internal advertisement and interviewing. And while we did that, we also looked at the job description, the duties, and we thought about, is there a better way? And it kind of came apparent after several conversations, mainly with street superintendent Roger Hansen and myself, that having 2 mechanics would be beneficial to our department, but also to the city, as the mechanic supports a number of other departments with their fleet vehicles as well. So one of the main drivers for this is right now, currently, when Jake is doing his mechanic duties, a lot of the times he pulls somebody off of the street department to give him a hand. We have larger equipment, that stuff just is heavier, bulkier, needs a second set of hands, needs a little help. So we are already kind of operating in that capacity where we, most of the time, have 2 guys in the mechanic bays working. Jake does not do mechanic duties 100% of the time. He's pulled off and does work in the street department for street maintenance, any snow event, major storm event, patching, concrete work. So that's a thing that does happen and is proposed to continue to happen in the future. However, what we'd like to do is we still like to utilize 2 mechanics. We'd like to recognize them both with the proper pay and with the job descriptions. So as we went through and we received the applications for the openings, we had 2 applicants, and they both are solid mechanics. One has been with the city a number of years and is basically the guy that has assisted Jake in the last 6 years. Has worked on a lot of farm equipment, is kind of the bigger, stronger guy, is able to really pry on things. The other guy has been trained as a mechanic with a local shop, is ASC certified, a little bit more tech savvy, can do the computer things and diagnose much better. So they're both solid mechanics in their own right, and we just see that if we make two mechanic positions, their skills could be used to benefit everyone. Another driver for this is over the years, our fleet size has increased. So PD has increased the rotation of the squads, which has been tremendous. So we are getting better equipment, or they're getting better equipment for their patrols. But instead of phasing them out, one vehicle went to zoning department, another vehicle went to Waupaca Online, so they're still in the fleet. They added another squad over the last 10 years. They share their squads from day shift and night shift, which is another good policy they have. So we're trying not to add vehicles, but it's just kind of happening. But what has happened is they're putting on twice as many miles, and which is that much more maintenance with oil changes, tire rotations, and then on top of the tire rotations, we switch those out seasonally. So we have winter tires and summer tires, which also happen. We added a third front end loader in Public Works. When we added the salt shed, we needed another piece of equipment during the snow events. We do still use that year round. Some of our other larger equipment, our street sweeper, our vac truck, the other front end loaders are all within 5 years. And we want to try and keep our equipment maintained and as new as possible. So when we looked at this and talked about, hey, how does two mechanics work the best? We thought, let's have one mechanic take the lead. So have supervisory basic responsibilities, have the higher responsibilities as far as ordering the parts, doing the billing, the administrative, have the second mechanic more of a lesser of a responsible role. So what we did was take the current mechanic job description and tweak those in both directions. So gave the lead mechanic more responsibilities, gave the regular mechanic slightly less, and that is reflective in their pay. So the lead mechanic would be making more than the current mechanic, where the future mechanic would make less than the current mechanic. On top of that, we would add this pay to our pay scale. Not every council member was here when we first adopted this, but Public Works and Parks adopted a pay scale where traditionally in the handbook, when you get hired on, you work 6 months probational period, you get 90% pay. After your 6 months upon completion, you're at 100% of your pay. We spread it out over 5 years, so you still go through your probational period. After 6 months, you are off of probation if you successfully complete that. However, you still have another 4.5 years to get up to your full pay rate. At the time, we did not have a mechanic on there, largely because the duty just said you need to have a minimum of 5 years of experience. We tweaked that again and kind of opened it up so that in the future, if we're in a bind or we have more turnover, we can bring on lesser experienced personnel, just like the pay scale was intended, train them, develop them, and then at the same time, experience savings over the 5 years. So this, compared to the traditional way of hiring, saves anywhere from $10,000 to $15,000 to the city for just wages. With the two individuals we have in mind, the lead mechanic, since he's been here for 7 years, we would just put at the 5-year mark. The other mechanic is still in the pay scale, the other individual is still within the pay scale. So we would bring them up to the mechanic, but start them out at year 1. So the budget has been considered where there is these offsets of savings where, yes, we are paying one guy a little more, but we're paying the other guy a little less, and then seeing the savings over the next 4 years on our pay scale. So finally, if this goes through, our next step is, we'd have a vacancy in the street department, and we'd look to hire somebody probably new off the streets at the labor position, starting them back over, or at the beginning of the pay scale. So again, having the offset of the cost there. So, without further ado, what I'm looking for is approval of these two new job descriptions, which are included herein, and then approval of our pay scale for 2023.
Remind me again what page your pay scale is on in here?
89.
I got it, 89. And you're only looking at updating your pay scale just for these two individuals?
That's correct.
Yeah. Everything else is the same.
Yes.
Thanks. I'm trying to see how we worded it in our agenda here. And I have to go backwards there. Okay, so what you're saying, because we don't specifically state in our agenda that we're changing the pay scale, but you're saying that as part of the job description change, that also included the change in dollar amounts that they would be paid. That makes sense?
I just want to make sure I'm clear. We're adding these two positions to the pay scale, which they weren't there before. So we're adding those to the pay scale.
Okay, through the job description, you're adding these two to the pay scale.
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
all right. Thank you.
Yep.
All right, so we only need one motion then to approve this. We would be approving the job description, which also adds these two positions to the DPW pay scale. Henry, go ahead.
Justin, you alluded to it in your cover memo. You're basically reclassifying a labor position to a mechanic. Mechanic goes to lead mechanic. Mechanic, labor reclassified to mechanic. You're not adding, I guess I'm getting, but you said you're not adding to the not personnel numbers in the department.
Right.
And that you have a labor position you're going to advertise that's open?
Correct. So
And that's an opening now?
well, it will be after what's determined tonight.
Right.
So
Okay.
we technically have one vacancy.
Gotcha.
Right.
So it's not reclassification necessarily?
It's more of a promotion. So we're
Yeah.
promoting
Okay.
two individuals that are on the street department to two different mechanic positions.
And one happens to be a laborer position right now?
Correct.
Gotcha. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. So if you remember, just again, Russ Montgomery retired, and then Jake, who was our mechanic, then took his position, and Jake is actually doing both positions right now. And so Russ did have pay that we are paying out after he retired, so we're recuperating that, but we're just gonna be recuperating it at a slower pace now because we're gonna be adding this position. But we'll still get paid for it throughout the process, if that makes sense to you.
Well, and it's important for safety too, to have those extra set of, that extra person there.
Right. We can live longer with a vacant labor position than we can with a superintendent or a mechanic.
Okay, anybody else? We're looking for a motion to approve this recommendation.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Olson, second by Martin, that we approve of this job description for lead mechanic and mechanic and lead mechanic to the Public Works pay scale. Any discussion? Barb will call the roll.
Dimitri Martin,
Aye.
Henry Veliker,
Aye.
Eric Olson,
Aye.
Lori Chestnut,
Aye.
Paul Hagan,
Aye.
Dave Peterson,
Aye.
Colin Dykstra,
Aye.
Paul Mayo,
Aye.
8 ayes, 1 absent, motion carried.
All right, thanks, Justin.
Thank you.
All right, next up, we actually have the first reading of ordinance number 01-2023, and I'll turn this over to Jared.
Thank you very much, Mayor. So this one starts on page 90 of your packets. A visual map can be found on page 91, and then I'll reference the map on 92 right after this. But so this parcel actually did recently go through a zoning change. It was zoned I-2 heavy industrial. As part of the River North neighborhood preparation, we did go through this area and try to proactively change those zoning districts to ensure that the current use is in an appropriate zoning district. So we did zone this to B4. The new business Waupaca Rental Center did move from Fulton Street to this facility, and they're the new owners. With them moving into this structure, they had approached myself and asked if it'd be an opportunity to purchase additional land, as they would like the opportunity to expand. Being in my line of work, I, of course, said that was a positive and worked with them to accomplish that. So on page 92, there's a snippet of the certified survey map that was approved to expand their land. As part of that expansion, it did flow over into our currently zoned R3 zoning district parcel. So right now, after that certified survey map was approved, they're dual zoned. So we need to eliminate that dual zoning and change the entire new expanded parcel to B4. So that is what's being requested, just to clean up that dual zoning on a recently expanded parcel.
Okay, so that is the first reading. So we will have a second reading at our next council meeting, which, by the way, don't forget, is on February 20th, because the 21st is an election day, and the 22nd is when we normally do it, but somebody's going on vacation, so he requested us to go to the 20th. Okay? So, just as a reminder. All right, Jared, thank you. Next up, we have a conditional use permit for KT Real Estate Holdings LLC.
Thank you very much. So this one starts on page 96. So this is a conditional use permit request for Quick Trip, the one that's located just downtown here. As you may recall, or you can see in a photo on page 96 in my report, they do own and operate a parcel that is right next door, right across Franklin Street, that has approximately 6 or 7 parking spaces directly off the roadway, the right-of-way. So they did approach the city looking to expand that parking lot. After discussing with staff, myself, Justin, we did look at the safety of that current parking lot and determined that it would be much safer if it was a more enclosed one drive in and out parking lot, that drive is as far away as possible from the intersection of Fulton and Franklin. So Quick Trip did go back to the drawing board, and they did come up with a new proposal that did encompass that request, in which the entire parking lot will be enclosed within the parcel and be operated from a drive that is located as far away as possible from the intersection of Fulton and Franklin. So they are looking to come forward for the conditional use. The site plan was brought forward with the conditional use to plan commission. The site plan was approved conditionally upon the approval of the conditional use permit, and then the conditional use permit was recommended for approval. I'm happy to take any questions on this one, if there are any.
Yeah, thanks, Jared. In your packet, I think, I'm looking at page 107. And then 108 will show you what their plan is for that. And Franklin Street's a pretty narrow street, and they're actually parking on the street now. So I think we all think, city planning people all thought that this was a huge improvement over what they're currently doing, plus they're adding parking spaces for their employees and patrons, I guess, too.
Yeah, they did say it was mostly for employees, but I'm sure it's very well possible that their patrons could park here as well. So.
Okay, so Jared is recommending that we approve this conditional use permit.
I'd make that motion to approve the additional conditional use permit as presented.
I'll second.
Motion by Henry, second by Lori, that we approve the conditional use permit for the KT Real Estate Holdings at 306 West Fulton Street, better known as, of course, the Quick Trip property. Any further discussion? Yeah, Colin, go ahead.
The area on Fulton Street, which will now be turned into a curb, will that allow for, I guess, what do we call it, parallel parking then? Or will that be no parking spot?
Justin?
Along Fulton Street?
Franklin, between this driveway and the corner of Fulton.
You said Fulton, but.
Oh, I'm
okay,
sorry,
you
I meant Franklin. Sorry,
Okay.
my apologies.
That's all right.
I think that's going to be awfully tight, but we can definitely look into it. And the one thing that came up in Plan Commission was the, I guess, the distance to Fulton Street and some of the safety concerns there. So I would say at this point, we would not stripe that parallel.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, if you drive Franklin Street, you know that it's a street, but it's a narrow street. And it's good for Quick Trip, as we've said before, but it's a very busy area, so it might be best not to allow any parking on the street.
It's also a section that's just a little section with no sidewalk there too.
Yeah,
Come into play there.
yeah. Okay, anything else? Barbara, call the roll?
Paul Hagan,
Aye.
Paul Mayo,
Aye.
Eric Olson,
Aye.
Colin Dykstra,
Aye.
Lori Chestnut,
Aye.
Dave Peterson,
Aye.
Henry Veliker,
Aye.
Dimitri Martin.
Aye.
8 ayes, 1 absent, motion carried.
All right, next up, we have license report 1612. This is for operators or bartenders license. We would need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Hagan, second by Chestnut, that we approve of the license report number 1612. Discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against, say no. Motion carried. All right. Next, we have Justin would like to talk to us about the urban forestry in the city of Waupaca. So just remember that this is not, there is no action in this situation. This is just for FYI, at least at this time. So, Justin?
Yes. Set up on the podium here. Oh, there it is. All right. Thank you. Yeah. Well, thanks for giving me a few minutes to talk. This presentation tonight is on urban forestry in the city of Waupaca. To start off, I'd like you to look at the picture on the screens there and think about what you're looking at. And, well, I'll give you a few clues. So this is the city of Waupaca. It's from a drone, took a picture just before Lake Street was done, the project there. So you can see Lake Street kind of going from bottom right to left. Berlin Street kind of going off to the right there. Courthouse is in the background. So this, this is City of Waupaca. So we have a lot of impervious surfaces. We have homes, we have streets, we have sidewalks, but you can't see them all in this picture. And that's because the trees are in the way. So the trees are growing up in the grassy areas, the soft areas. So the answer to the question is, well, this is a picture of an urban forest. So in the city, urban forestry is kind of a multifaceted, multi-organizational approach. It's handled through Public Works, but we definitely have a lot of support and help from others. So currently, I am enrolled in a CTMI certification course, which is Community Tree Management Institute. I enrolled in this a couple years ago. COVID kind of derailed it for a year and a half, and now I'm back on board. And I'm going to be wrapping this up in June. A part of that program, you have to do a project. And when I looked at the list of potential projects, I noticed we were doing pretty good here in the city. Things such as an ordinance, education, tree inventories, GIS, things of that nature. One of the things you could do is education presentation to a board. So I thought, I'll go ahead and I'll do that. The last person that was certified in this was Russ Montgomery, since retired. So he was our go-to forester in the city and Public Works. Now I'm picking up that torch. I'm going to try and run with it as well. So that organization works really close with the DNR. Obviously, we do too. They have a forestry department. They're a huge asset and resource to us. They have supported us with grant programs. We've been very successful in the last couple of years securing funding from the DNR with replacing trees and new tree plantings. Speaking of grants, ATC, which is American Transmission Company, they own those large overhead lines. When they put those in, they don't discriminate. They just clear cut everything. And to make up for that, they have a program where they give money to municipalities to plant trees in other areas. We recently received a $5,000 grant, which was the largest the city has ever received. Prior to that, we had a couple years where we did receive $500, $1,200. And again, that's with support from Friends of Waupaca Parks and Park and Rec. So Laura and other people on the Friends group helped with that application. And they also help with the planning in the parks. So a big part of keeping our parks attractive and a draw for people is the major trees. So they've also donated their time and, of course, money. Rotary, same thing, a local group. Every year they want to try and donate time, money, and even a tree, and they have planted in our boulevards and in our parks before. And then finally, Arbor Day. We've been a member for close to 30 years. Again, just a resource, a wealth of information, something that we can direct citizens to get education on how to plant their own trees. And of course, it really helps to be able to say that on applications of being this member for that long for these grant funds. So our budget within Public Works is just under $40,000. And like I said, forestry is primarily through the Public Works Department. That $40,000 in relation to our entire budget of almost $1.1 million means that about 3.5% of our time and money is spent on forestry. So the bulk of that is actually tree removal, which, sad to say, that's where most of our time is. Trees can fall almost any time. It doesn't have to be a windy day. It can be a calm day. We've had a number of major storm events come through where it has knocked down 30, 40, 50-plus trees. The picture on the left there of the screen is a tree from South Park, and you can see it's a mess, but we have a guy in the background, big equipment. We have more equipment that's off the screen. It's very labor-intensive, very costly to get rid of these trees. Besides the ones that just fall on their own, we do remove some that we identify as failing or may become a nuisance or are already dead. We set time and money for trimming, so we have a 5-year cycle where we identify and just rotate through the city, and we go through and we trim trees. We do that mostly in the right-of-way where they would encroach or obstruct into the sidewalk or the driving lanes. We go through and we trim up those areas. And on top of that, if it's done right, it should lead to a longer, healthier life for the tree and less maintenance for us into the future. We plant trees every single year. We target roughly 20 to 30 every year that we try to plant. These grants help increase that number, so we have gone up to 40, 50 trees in recent years. Our planting program is we call out smaller trees, so 1.5-inch caliper, so they're usually like that big on the base. Bare root, so that means they show up and that you can just see all the roots. So that makes it easier to pick up and for our guys to plant. It's a little more cost effective versus getting bigger trees. So trees that are like 4 inches in diameter and then have the big burlap ball in the bottom, several $100+ So we can get more trees, more bang for our buck if we call out these smaller trees, get them in the ground quicker. We stake them, we wrap them for protect from critters, and then we just kind of say, good luck, hope to not see you for another 50 years. We would like to do a little bit more if we could. Obviously, our budget is where we're at. We'd like to water a little bit more. We'd like to plant a few more trees. The picture on the right is a really good picture. It's out in our industrial park. So the ones that are staked are ones we planted a couple years ago. And then in the background, there was trees that were planted in the industrial park like 20 years ago. So it kind of shows you a timeline of how we've prepared for the future development and developing these trees, so when new things go out there, the trees fit in and we're all ready. So why do we do all this? Well, it's more than just like everyone else does it, so we should do it too. Trees have many, many benefits. So probably the most obvious one is trees produce oxygen. And we breathe that in, we need that to survive. They also take out carbon dioxide, ammonia, ozone, and some other nasty things that we shouldn't breathe in. So it's pretty obvious, like, we need oxygen, we shouldn't be breathing in those other things. Trees give us oxygen, and they take away those things. So the benefit there is a pretty obvious parallel. There's a thermal benefit for having trees in the city. Obviously, with the shade on a hot, sunny day, you go seek out the shade, it feels nice. But on top of that, in the city, there's a thing called urban heating. So these long summer days, the sun is out, the materials such as pavement, bricks, metals, they take in a lot of heat energy. And after the sun goes down, they stay warm for a very, very long time. We're in our buildings here, we try to cool them down with air conditioners, with fans. There is a cost there directly to us with our energy bills. Trees, on the other hand, will offset that, and there is a dollar component to that I'll get to in just a minute. Water conservation and soil preservation. So if you think about a mature forest, when it rains, those rain droplets will hit the top canopies, hit the leaves, work its way down, hit the underbrush, work its way down to the ground, which is covered in leaf litter, and then gently work its way into the soil, where that moisture is most likely to stay and capture. In an open area, every drop of rain has some energy to it. When it hits the ground, that energy can dislodge particles of soil, black dirt, and other things, and run off into our local streams, wetlands, and lakes. So the high volume of water runoff and soil into those areas reduces those areas, their health, their ecology, and reduces our recreational benefit, and also reduces our ability to give everyone safe drinking water. Aesthetic benefits, so we see a picture up there of the fall. People like to see the fall colors. State of Wisconsin promotes that for their tourism. When you see trees, it reduces your stress levels. There's a lot of studies out there that show People who live in areas with a lot of mature leaves have longer lifespans. They have less health issues. In areas with trees that are not there, is the opposite, plus much higher crime rates. So there is a connection with being around trees in nature. So besides just like talking about it and saying, hey, these things are good, I really wanted to put something to it, a dollar value, a number to it. And when I was at one of the trainings earlier this year, found out that there's this program online called iTree. And iTree has, it's a website, and it has many different modules on it, from very basic to very complex. So anybody in the city, like a resident, could pick up the most basic and type in the information of their property, their trees, and get a printout of their benefits, which is similar to what's showing on here in this white table on the screen there. So I went in, and I didn't take the most basic. I kind of took a middle of the road and then the most complex one. So the middle of the road program just said, City of Waupaca, here you are in Google Maps, we'll give you an estimate. Boom, that's what that table is on the right. And then I thought, okay, well, that's nice. Can I support that a little bit? And I went in and did the most complex program. And again, it said, where are you? City of Waupaca, define the borders. And then this program randomly selected points in the city. And then I selected what the program was looking at. Just shy of 600 points you see on the bottom there that were selected for this. And what popped up was this table. And the light green shows trees. The dark green shows other landscape. Black, gray, and red is impervious surface. The brown is soil or gravel, and then of course the blue is water. So took these two programs and compared them and to see if like, hey, is this stuff really valid? And basically the basic program said, well, we expect City of Waupaca to have about a 23% tree canopy cover. And looking at the complex results, well, we're doing a lot better than that, which is good. It said you should have about 15% impervious surface. When you add up the black, gray, and red, that's pretty dang close. The bare soil or gravel is actually pretty high, and drawing from that, our industrial park has quite a few gravel lots. We're also fairly rural yet, so we have quite a few farm fields that are exposed most of the years. And as we move forward into the future, well, and we promote development, we would expect the impervious to go up, the brown, the bare soil to come down, and what we're going to try and prevent is the greens from coming down, which with the help of our forestry program, zoning, we're going to try and keep those things up. And the reason is, from this program, the benefit of having all these trees around, the carbon dioxide sequestering is a value to the city of just over $150,000. So again, that's a major nod to that thermal component where we're reducing the heat loads, we're reducing our utility bills, and we don't have to improve our infrastructure to support our energy usage. Stormwater mitigation is around $50,000 of a benefit every single year. So again, keeping our soil and water clean, improving our recreation quality within these bodies of water, and maintaining that into the future. And then finally, air pollution, the benefit to the city is just under $67,000. So of course, we want to breathe in oxygen. We don't want to breathe in bad gases. But when we do, well, we get sick more often. We got to go to the doctor. We have doctor bills. We miss out on work, so that's reduced wages. Kids miss school. That's the financial impact that has to the city. So finally, well, what else do you want to know? We try to promote education. We assist in the development. We just got done looking at Quick Trip. They called out 5 ginkgos, which are trees we want here. We look to diversify the stock. In these development agreements or these developments that we look at, the landscaping, we think of like right tree, right place. So there's been some other development. They wanted to put a giant oak tree underneath power lines. Well, that's not good. Right next to sidewalks, that's not good. Going to heave the sidewalk, it's going to put acorns on the sidewalk. So we look at those things and make suggestions on changes on how to diversify the stock and make the development even more attractive. A lot of that is supported by the zoning code and having the green, having the shrubs, having the site breaks, all that is there to help that canopy stay up there into the future. But again, that's a nod to preserving our infrastructure, so what we plant, where we plant, and also all the community members. Again, like I said, you won't want to plant giant trees right next to sidewalk. You don't want to plant them over water and sewer lines as well. So we're looking at this holistic approach of when we plant these trees, are they still going to be there 50 years from now? Mentioned the trimming program. We also do a leaf and brush pickup. So again, we chop the city up into 5 different sections, go pick up leaves and brush, and again, just try to keep those things from getting out into our wetlands. So when you add all these things up, it's looking at preserving property values, improving the quality of life in the city, and honestly, planting trees is one thing in public works that's different from everything else we do. When we buy new things or build brand new things, they start depreciating right away. We plant a tree, it appreciates every single year to the tune of we have about 500 street trees, about 600 trees in the parks. And the value of those things is over $1.5 million. So we take a lot of time to make these things right with, you can see, try to be efficient as we can with our budget as possible. So thank you for your time, and I'll open it up to questions or comments.
Go ahead, Aaron.
I have a question. Sorry, my eyes are terrible. You mentioned canopy cover percentage.
Yes.
I couldn't see it because of my eyes. I'm sure it was on the chart. What is our canopy cover percentage?
We're at about 35%. And that includes like areas like, think of Swan Park, the big wooded areas, and then everywhere in between the downtown, which there isn't much. So.
Yeah, cool. That's a cool stat. Urban heating, or what was the term you used for lots of pavement and overheating in those areas?
It's just, like urban heating. I think that's the term.
If you ever want an example of that, get off the train in downtown Denver, and it's beautiful, tons of concrete scape, but it is so hot.
And you'll see that if you watch the weather at night, you'll see the urban centers are a few degrees higher than all the rural neighbors on the summer days. So.
Henry, go ahead.
Has the staff ever discussed maybe having a city, your own tree farm? Do we have any, where we plant our own trees maybe and cultivate them over time?
Right.
I don't know if we have any space anywhere to do that. I guess because that's something our Rotary Environment Committee has talked about. So there's always a partner opportunity, something like that.
Yeah, that has been discussed, and again, it's kind of like, where do we put it and how do we do it? There's other communities that are doing these things called gravel beds, and it's just pea gravel in a certain fixed area, and they plant the trees in there, and you have to water them like constantly. But they survive and they grow, and then when it comes time to plant them, you can literally just pick them out and transplant them. The benefit of that would be, they're readily available. We could buy younger trees at a better rate, just pay to water them. After a few years, then we can plant them where we want. It's a little more maintenance, something we'd have to figure out on a when and where and how. So, but it's been discussed. So.
Anybody else? Questions? Justin, thank you for that update. Nice.
You're welcome.
All right, we're getting ready to adjourn here. Again, I want to remind everybody that our next city council meeting is actually February 20th instead of the 21st because of elections. And we were notified today too that, for those of you that have children, that is school day, it's President's Day, so there is not school that day. So if you are unable to attend, we'll understand that. Most of us, the kids are old enough, huh? Probably. City Planning Commission, I'm just mentioning it because again, it's the first of the month, because it's the first Wednesday of every month, so it'll be the first. So plan ahead, Planning Commission members. Anybody else have anything for tonight? Paul?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Hagan, second by Bellicker, that we adjourn. All in favor,
always the first
signify
one
by
out of the
saying
gate.
aye.
Aye.
Against, say no. Motion carried. We're adjourned at 7:22 PM. Have a great night, everybody.